Welcome to Leominster Access Television and Neighborhood Snapshot. My name is Bob Sardelli. I am a member of the Leominster Historical Commission. Today we welcome to the LATV studios 3 lifelong residents of Leominster and former employees of a former major Leominster employer, the Foster Grant Company. We have today 3 fine individuals whom many of you in the LATV viewing audience will certainly recognize. We welcome Mrs. Grace Selly. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you.
Mr. William Gettins. Welcome, Bill.
Bob.
And Mr. Marty Spacciapoli. Welcome, Marty. We're going to begin, in a moment we're going to show a visual in one moment, but I want to read something to you from the anniversary book, More Than Meets the Eye, the Foster Grant story, a book put out on the golden anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the Foster Grant Company. And this was More Than Meets the Eye, the Foster Grant story by Glenn D. Kittler. And the LATV studios are at Manning Avenue, and I want to read you something from the book. And the point is that the company started out very small, and it grew to be a major national and international corporation. Starting out in a dingy shack jammed against a cliffside on Manning Avenue, Sam Foster began to build an empire at a time when other men were filing for bankruptcy. This must have been in the 20s.
Yeah, 1919.
1919. It goes on to say, on that day on Manning Avenue, on that day in 1921, when Sam Foster decided to make something, he took the first steps towards the creation of 3 major industries: sunglasses, injection molding, and plastics. By the time in 1969, when Sam's little company was celebrating its golden anniversary, the tiny workshop on Manning Avenue had developed into a huge complex of factories. We'll show you a photograph of that, some photographs of the factories shortly, and processing plants across the country. And the staff of a dozen people, when he started, had increased to 2,200. And at the other end of the book, at the conclusion of this book, the Foster Grant story, as we hope you will see during this interview with these 3 fine folks, the Foster Grant story is, because of the nature of the company, a story about people, the people who comprise the Foster Grant family, both employees and customers. And one of the things we hope that comes out during this interview with Bill and Grace and Marty is that Foster Grant, and for many of the people in Leominster who work there in the viewing audience, there was that family atmosphere at Foster Grant. And I am going to show a picture now of the founder of the company, and I'm going to hold up this book. Here is a picture of Samuel Foster Jr. This is Samuel Foster Jr., and all 3 of you knew Mr. Foster.
Right. Yes.
This was Joseph Foster's dad, and now I'm going to show this is from the Happy Birthday to Joe Foster, Samuel Foster's son. Happy birthday to you. Grace just brought this in today, and she has kindly donated it to the archives of the Leominster Historical Commission, but it has a beautiful drawing of Joseph Foster, Joe Foster, and this is Samuel Foster's son. And Grace pointed out to me that and this is the happy birthday, Joe Foster, happy birthday to you, and at the back it's there are autographs. Grace, would you explain what is going on in this picture? Those are all autographs.
Those are all autographs of the people who went to Joe Foster's birthday party. It was his 60th birthday party, and all the people that were there signed the back of the page.
Signed the back. And
there are many people there who are out in the city, you know, that are still living, and will recognize their names if they could see it.
And they're probably watching this. Right. They're probably watching this program at this moment.
Right.
Now we're going to show a couple of other pictures. This one, Bill kindly brought this in. This is the Foster Grant Company Incorporated, Leominster, Massachusetts. And Bill, would you explain what we're looking at?
This is the Richardson Piano Factory that they bought in 1936, which had about 200,000 square feet manufacturing space. This became the first area where we made the cellulose acetate molding materials. In this particular picture, this whole backyard is full of lumber that Richardson used to make piano cases out of and ship around the world to be assembled. And I was a little boy, I used to run through there because my grandfather lived across the street. And all this lumber was here, and then it all kind of like disappeared. I don't know what happened to the lumber. We started making plastic materials here and cleared that whole yard out, which eventually, in later pictures, became our parking lot, which we could park maybe about 1,500 cars in our parking lot at the height of the
We'll show a picture of that shortly. Okay. And we want to show another picture now, an aerial photograph, one of Arthur Bedoin's photos. Arthur Bedoin was a pioneer aerial photographer in Leominster and the region, and this is Arthur's shot, and it shows the Foster Grant plant on North Main Street, where this other picture was we just showed. And this was probably in, what would you say that's in the...
That was like the early 70s,
in the early 70s?
I guess.
It's hard to see.
Although maybe it's before that, because
I think
the new sunglass plant's not built yet on the left-hand side.
So this might have been in the, well, it's prior to the 70s, maybe in the 40s.
Yeah, probably early 50s.
And if we could, and one of the things, now I'm going to hold up this picture. So this is something that was brought in by
this was the original Richardson Piano Shop. In this picture in 1972, we now employed about 2,200 people at this spot. These were all executive offices. All this manufacturing space, four stories, had been converted into offices, okay? This bubble here was just a warehouse for raw materials that we used in the sunglass building, which is right here. This was 200,000 square feet just to manufacture sunglasses only. That was a two-story building, basically. Well, really 1.5. This part over here is 2 stories. This is only 1. This was the polymer warehouse shipping area here. We used to send out over 200 million pounds of polystyrene a year out of here. The trucks are backed up here. The shipping room for the sunglass was down below over here where these other trucks are. Marty Spatchapoli and Mike Lanza used to run that operation over there, okay? Joe Foster's office is in the front corner of this building here. We could survey everything what's going on in his domain. This was our research and development operation. Had 114 men in there. Our tool room, machine was originally the bottom of this building. We employed about 90 men in our mold making. We had another mold making facility in Milford, Connecticut. So we had about 140 men making dyes, molds. And we made in excess of 300 molds a year for our own products, for Gillette, the safety razor in Boston, and for many, many, many other custom plastic people back in those days. We made ring boxes. Anything that was made out of plastic in the late 30s and the 40s and 50s, Foster Grant is a big, big share of the custom injection molding. In fact, people from Foster Grant, like a fellow by the name of Phil Graham, who developed many things for our company, went on and he started his own business, Worcester Molded Plastics. He molded the first full TV sets. Magnavox bought those from him in the early, whenever TV came out, 47, 48, 50, but 1950 probably. Anyway, that's it, I guess. This was our personnel office over here, and you can attest by the fact here there were probably 1,500 cars in this parking lot at that time. So it was a pretty good size operation.
It was a huge operation, but I have, if we can see the picture again, I have to refer to something. If you look in Leominster and you try to find this today, you can't find it. People new to Leominster, new residents of Leominster, they may visit Water Tower Plaza and not have the foggiest idea of what why it's called Water Tower Plaza, but if we can, Bill, if you could point out where the water tower is. It was a landmark in Leominster.
Right here. FG was right on there. There's the water tower
There's
right there.
the water tower.
That controlled the sprinkler system for the old operation that used to be the Richardson Piano Shop. Yeah.
And for people new to Leominster now, they know where McDonald's is. Where's McDonald's? This is North Main Street.
Right there.
Near the
McDonald's is right there.
McDonald's is
this
right
was
there.
the DeSoto Plymouth garage, Hapgood Motors. This
And
was the builder. Marty. the builder, what's his name? Tragic. Tragic used to live on this street.
Yes,
Frank
yes,
Tragic,
Frank
the builder.
That's right.
And for residents new to Leominster, now you can visit the Shaw's Supermarket.
Yeah.
There's the paper store. There's
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
It's that area, but it was a major employer in Leominster, the
Point out
Foster
one
Grant
thing.
Company.
This pond back here was our holding pond. We used to use 5 million gallons of water a day and recycle it to cool down all our injection molding machines, and to cool down also the processing for the polystyrene. The thing is that, speaking about injection molding, when I went there in 1944, there was like 140 injection molding machines in Foster Grant on one floor. The largest concentration of injection molding machines anywhere in the world, not just the United States, the world. And Foster Grant built their own machines because in the beginning of time, they couldn't buy commercial equipment. And in York, Pennsylvania, we had a plant where we built injection molding machines. And we built about 50 of them. They went all around the world. We sent some to Australia, England, and Germany, of all things, right? Because they started the injection molding business, the Germans basically. But we developed our own equipment, and years later, our 8-ounce machine was a basic principal machine that IMCO used for their 8-ounce machine. And it was really a Foster Grant design machine, per se.
And we're going to get back to something about the injection molding later on in the interview. I learned something out in the ante room about the water tower itself, and I just assumed, water tower, there was water in it, but what was the purpose of that water tower? Bill, you had...
It was for the sprinkler system for the fire. In case of fire, it stored a tremendous amount of water. I forget how many gallons, but it sprinkled the entire plant. The old plant, anyway.
Yeah.
All 4 floors.
And so that was for
Water,
pressure,
safety,
for the
fire.
safety. I have to ask you, each of you, this. We'll go, Grace. What was your job? When did you start working at Foster Grant?
Well, excuse me. My first job was, and I was hired in 1939, right out of high school. And I was in the molding room doing production slips. And I had to figure out the cycles and how much each machine produced for that day.
And you probably made like $7, $8 an hour, right, in those days?
Oh, sure.
How much? You told me.
At that time, I think it was less than 24 cents an hour.
Less than 24
Yes, at that
cents
time
an
it
hour.
was. About 18 cents maybe, because I got 24 later.
Oh boy, you got a raise and you got
different
24
job.
cents.
Mm,
18
right.
cents an hour. So for young people who happen to be watching, times have changed.
We worked 44 hours.
Yeah.
44 hours a
No
week.
time and a half.
No time and a half. And how many years did you work at Foster Grant?
31 years.
31 years. But you progressed through different jobs. What was your job after you moved from that particular position?
After that job, I was accounts receivable and accounts payable clerk. And from that, I went to head bookkeeper.
With the head.
And I was bookkeeper there until 1953 when I left to have my children.
And one of whom is
Jack.
Is Jack Sully.
Right. And then I went back in 1962 into the accounting department. I was secretary to the comptroller, Mr. Began with an M. Anyway, it's a long time ago.
McManus?
And, McManus. I was his secretary up in the executive offices.
right.
Remember, they
Yep.
called it Mahogany Row.
Right.
And then from there, I went into purchasing, or no, I went into Palmer Sales. I actually did business with Mulestein in New York with a woman who no one wanted to deal with. But she loved me, so I could get a lot out of her, and I made sure that she got her shipments on time. And then from there, I went into purchasing department,
yeah.
and I worked with Bill.
Right.
And from there, I did a lot. From there, I went to the accounting department, and the cost accounting. And accounting was my field anyway. So when I retired from cost accounting.
And you retired?
I became a junior accountant.
And you retired in?
1984.
1984. We'll go to Marty, and then we'll go to Marty, when did you start?
1940.
1940. And how much did you start an hour?
45 cents.
Wait a minute. Wait. How come you started at such a high? Explain that story, please.
Because my brother-in-law, Mike Lanza, was a good friend of Roy Gettins. So when I went into shipping, they said, well, they'll touch you at 45 cents an hour. And I was working with Tony Penn, I remember. Yeah. And he said, what did you start working with? 45 cents an hour. What a lucky guy you are. He said, I started 2 weeks ago at 40 cents an hour.
So, but those amounts sound, you know, insignificant today, but that was what people made. And of course, prices and the cost of living was lower then, but still, it's when you think the change. Yeah. And then, Marty, what were your various responsibilities through the years?
Well, I started out in the shipping department, shipping and receiving. Then I went to work as a warehouse, handling the warehouse work and stuff like that. Then I ended up in Manchester, New Hampshire, Renault International at Fitchburg, and I ended up at Foster Grant Company, back to Polymer. Then I got back in the summer. I was out in various departments all the time. And I ended up at Foster Grant in Leominster. And then I went back that was for 42 and a half years. Then I went back for about a year or two as a night consultant working with, you know, just trying to earn extra money. In those days, money was a big thing. Yeah. But salary was something, because I can remember when I was working at Foster Grant, my brother was working at Fort Devens. He was earning a pretty decent salary, and he said to me, why don't you come down here to work? Take the exam, come down here to work, and you can get good benefits from it. I said, okay, so I went down, took the exam, passed it, and then I said, well, what will I start at? They said, you start at $21 a week. $21 a week. And I was making $28 a week at Foster Grant. That would have been a $7 loss.
Which would have been a huge difference.
So I turned it down.
And how many years service did you have at Foster Grant?
Actually, my pension is guided by 42 and a half years, but then I worked later on, like as an evening, to earn extra money.
So 42 plus years.
Yeah.
Wow. And Bill, when did you start?
When I started, I made 20 cents an hour. Worked in a shipping room, loading trucks, and did some routing. Marty was a good router too, and so was Tony Piano. After the first month, the head shipper at that time was Bunny McDowell. Oh, I guess Mike Lanza was the router at that time. Yeah. But anyway, he came over to me, slapped me on the back. He said, "Bill, you're doing a great job. You're going to get a raise. You get a nickel." So I got 25 cents an hour after the first month. And I remember I had a 1939 Ford at the time. I could get 6 gallons for $1. Figure that one out today. 6 gallons for $1. So 25 cents an hour wasn't too bad for a high school kid.
And just a little, today, this very day, gas load test is almost, in this area, around $3 a gallon almost. It's almost up to that.
Some places $3.09.
And so,
some difference,
how things have changed.
Yeah.
And Bill, how many years did you work at?
41 years.
41 years. Yeah. And you, I'm going to, in a moment, I'm going to show a picture of Bill's dad, who was a longtime employee at Foster's. And Bill, while I'm putting this, I'm going to put this picture up. Okay, and this gentleman, that's your dad.
That's Roy Gettins, right?
Roy Gettins.
He was the executive vice president of manufacturing. And the guy on the left was Harry C. Richards, was Executive Vice President of Sales. Took care of all our major sales to all the major stores like Kresge, Woolworth, W.T. Grant, all that kind of stuff.
And
drug stores, Rexall.
And we'll get back to those names that people recognize, like Rexall and W.T. Grant, and although some of them are gone now. Kresge's, I don't know if Kresge's still,
Kresge's
but
spot,
these major
Newberry, Kresge.
You're right.
Neisner, McCrory.
But Foster Grant produced products that were major.
With combs, sunglasses, and of course the Goody operation, barrettes, hair combs, curlers, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
And during the war.
Mirrors. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and then during the war years, it made outlet valve for the gas mask.
Right.
Again, one of our engineers had patented this thing. The only one that worked, by the way, because in World War I, guys got gas, and the valves didn't work in World War I. World War II, the valves worked. It was a development of a fellow by the name of Phil Graham again. Okay, he was a very good engineer, by the way. Thinking about that, going back to what I said in the beginning, we developed our own injection molding machines. We used to, before today you go to an injection molding plant, you see people, they get these drums on the floor, or gaylods, and they feed the machines with these air feeders into the hopper. But in our time, we just took the 55-gallon drums, 55-gallon drums, picked them up with a chain hoist and put them right on the hopper, and by gravity fed the machines. And my grace used to run in the molding area, but every 2 or 3 hours the drum would have to be changed. We just feed just by gravity all the way down.
You'd
and
feed the plastics material, the
pellets.
powder.
The pellets would go down into the nozzles and so forth. And that was long before they had all this modern stuff. And we already had we're already ahead of the game, basically.
And in this book, the More Than Meets the Eye, the Foster Grant story, Sam Foster, Joe's dad, it's a fascinating story about a real pioneering, something that revolutionized the plastics industry was developed in Germany, but then it was perfected over here. Tell us about the injection molding.
One of the main problems with injection molding in the beginning, they had a square plunger, a tool like this with a square plunger, and it dropped the material down in. And the tough thing was to get the uniform material that was now inside that cylinder, be all consistently heated, the whole mass to be heated properly, okay? We had this fellow by the name of Harold Farnsworth, who developed the first torpedo, just like a torpedo, that went inside the cylinder. So as the material came in, it was fed over this torpedo, and the area for the plastic got narrower as it got toward the front. So the heat would be right around the whole thing, 360 degrees, so that the material would flow very, very evenly. And that was a development that Foster Grant had from about 1932, 33, 34. In fact, it was so advanced that my father spent a whole summer in Kingsport, Tennessee, developing material that could run into our equipment. So we developed a specific cellulose acetate material for Foster Grant Company, a certain hardness, softness, and so forth. It was all developed for us specifically to fit our machines. So we really had a leg up on everybody.
And when you mentioned torpedoes, for the viewing audience, we're not talking about a military torpedo. We're talking about a part of a device, of a machine.
It looked just like a military.
And in the book, it was a really interesting story about the injection molding machine was developed in Germany, and Sam Foster and some other folks heard about it, and it was almost like a mystery, a secret. You know, they got wind of this machine. They had one shipped over here, or they got one from another company that
they shipped it to New York, so no one in Leominster knew it was coming here. It was shipped to Goody in New York, and Goody sent it to Leominster afterwards.
And Goody is a company.
Yes, H. Goodman and Sons.
And they tried to keep everything secret, and it didn't. There were a lot of bugs. It didn't work. It didn't work, and there was down on the Lancaster Street plant. There was a mystery room. There was a room that's described in the book as a mystery. It was like a secret room where this device was, and the Foster Grant workers and Sam Foster took the machine apart, put it together, assembled it 100 times or whatever, many, many times, and they finally got it to work so that it could do the injection molding, and then things just blossomed from
First
there.
machines, they used air compressors to open and close them, which was not a good way to go. And then Foster Grant developed a hydraulic process, which was very early on that, because no one else was on that score up to that point. And the first machines we had a central system. We could run 25 machines off of one tank of hydraulic fuel. That was a trick.
Yeah.
That was a trick. Jack Accaboni, Mike Accaboni developed all that stuff.
And so this injection molding discovery or improvement really revolutionized the manufacturing of plastics, and where products were made, you know, they're labor intensive, and you'd have people only turning out a few during a day.
Prior to that,
just crank them out.
Prior to that, they had to use material like Catlin and cellulose acetate sheets and nitrocellulose sheets, and everything was dinked out, cut out, and hand cut. There's a tremendous amount of hand labor. Hence, I mean, these are very expensive combs they used to turn off. These old Spanish combs, were very expensive things. And then he inlaid some of them with rhinestones and so forth. But the hand labor was tremendous, and especially the barrettes and things like that for the hair. So when they get the injection molding, you could turn these millions of pieces out, you know, from one die instead of all the hand labor. So it was a tremendous step forward. However, as fast as the development on the machines part came, the developing on the molding materials came, because the two had to work together to end up working. So as they developed the material, they developed better things in the machinery at the same time. So it all kind of came together as a cohesive unit.
And Foster Grant was instrumental. I mean, they were key in this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They were prime.
Right.
You know, I have to. I mentioned the Lancaster Street. It's the site of the opposite Maddie's restaurant. There's the Leominster Hardware, but there was, and part of the building has been taken down. But tell us about the different sites, some of the places in Leominster now. When I think during my era, Foster Grant was always up where the Water Tower Plaza was. But where are some? It started on Manning Avenue.
Yeah, right here.
And where were some of the other locations, Marty?
Down Lancaster Street.
Lancaster Street.
On both sides, behind Maddie's. And
Behind Maddie's too?
Yeah.
The white building.
The white building.
Right. Yeah.
And then Johnson Street, right? The side of Johnson Street.
Yeah,
was part
Johnson
of it.
Street.
Yeah, right across from each other. And Fitchburg, Renault International in Fitchburg, Manchester, New Hampshire.
Big plant. What was done at Manchester? What did they?
Both sunglasses and chemicals.
Chemicals.
Which are both out of there.
And we blew bottles.
Yeah, and bottle business too.
Yeah.
Bottle business.
Plastic bottles.
Right.
Yeah.
In down in Louisiana, what I read some.
And Baton Rouge, when we get in the styrene business, we had to buy the monomer from Coppers and Monsanto. The only two people would sell it to us. Dow wouldn't sell it to us because they figured we'd encroach on their business, right? So Joe decided to be basic all the way back. He had to build a plant to make his own monomer. So we built a plant in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Now, what's a monomer? That's
a liquid.
Liquid.
Yeah.
That's the
Make
stuff
plastics.
that to make the
Right.
plastics.
Right.
Okay.
We were very fortunate, though. At the time, Joe hired his fellow Bob Derby from Monsanto, and he was a very, very good chemical engineer. And he basically taught us and showed us how to get there, where Joe wanted to be, you know. But one of the big problems was we were using like 65 million pounds of polystyrene a year, and feasibility study looked like the smallest plant you could build was 100 million pounds. So Joe said, "We'll build it anyway, and I'll sell off the excess." And that's exactly what he did. And that's how we got started in the polystyrene business, and we became the second largest manufacturer of polystyrene in the United States. It was Dow, Foster Grant, Monsanto, then Coppers.
Wow. Wow. So Foster Grant was actually making many, many products, but they also got into manufacturing chemicals.
Yes.
And in this, I won't show it, but one of the photographs in this book, even Foster Grant had the first of Foster Grant's own tank cars to arrive in Leominster from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in the 1950s. On the trains, the actual tank cars to hold the chemicals
Yeah, right.
for manufacturing.
And Marty and Lou Barati, they used to chase those cars, right?
Yep.
Keep a record where all the cars where they were.
Yeah.
We had something like how many between we had 100,000 pounds dry flow cars, right? Plus the tank cars.
Yep.
We had I think our fleet was in excess of 500 cars, right? It was
Train
big,
cars.
big train cars.
We're
in excess of 500 to supply the whole United States.
The thing I can remember is Jimmy Gentili. I can remember, he used to work for him. His job was to clean out the monomer cars, and he'd be inside, climbing to the top, go inside and wash all the cars down.
Yeah.
All that smell going through.
That was tough, boy.
I'm backtracking a little bit, but while I've got the book in hand, Foster Grant. Now, it's obvious to the audience, Foster, Samuel Foster, that's the name of the company, but Grant.
Came from Providence.
From Providence, and the book points out a little interesting thing. Mr. Grant, he was very briefly a part of the company, but the name stuck. Tell us something about...
Sam came out of Rhode Island, and his brothers were all in the jewelry business. In fact, Sam was in the jewelry business. And he went to work for Bonnie Doyle at DuPont. But anyway, the thing is that, I think I was going to say. What was I going to say, Marty? Quick.
the name of the Mr. Grant.
Oh, Grant. So it was Grant, Grant and Fred England and Sam Foster started the business. And Grant was to be his salesman, and he knew him from the Providence jewelry business, okay? But Grant didn't see any future in selling plastic products. He said to Sam one day, I don't think, they're not going to make a go of it. So he quit. But he left his name, they bought him out then, but he left his name as part of the company. But England stayed on for quite a while.
He did.
Fred England, he stayed on.
So there's the Foster Grant.
That's where the
Grant name came.
And I think I remember in the book that it said Mr. England. I think that Sam Foster, was he willing to change the name, you know, to the Foster and put Mr. England's name in, but
he didn't want it.
But Mr. England said no, because Foster Grant by that time was being recognized. That was, you know, a recognizable name.
Sam loved property, and he bought all kinds of things. He had houses all over the city of Leominster.
Foster Court, it makes
Foster
it.
Court.
Where
He
is
built
Foster Court?
Just in back of Grove Avenue. The next street on the right, if you go up, what's that? West Street? No, West Street.
Merrimack?
Merrimack Avenue. The first street is Grove Avenue. The second street is Foster Court. He built all his houses in the back there, and Joe's house is right in front of that on Grove Avenue. But when they bought out Fred England, instead of taking money per se, England took all the Foster properties. Sam, like Foster Court, he owned at that time many things in Leominster, and he turned that all over to Fred England, and Fred England became the largest at that, back in whenever that was, I can't remember, very early 30s, I guess. He was the largest taxpayer in the city of Leominster for many years, and all because of the land that was his deal. That was his payoff for his portion of Foster Grant Company.
Interesting.
Fred England.
The Foster Grant Company did it go to other countries too? Did Canada, or where did it have any?
Marty, you want to go?
Canada, Baton Rouge.
In the United States?
Mexico.
Mexico?
Mexico,
We had a plant in Monterey.
So this was really an international.
It was all over.
My first injection molding machines we built, we sent 25 to England to a company called Jarrett, Rainsford and Lawton, and that was the first injection molding they had in England.
Now, Bill, did Foster Grant build these machines?
Yes.
So,
In York, Pennsylvania, we built our own machines. You go into our molding room, we had number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6 Foster Grant molding machines. After number 6, by that time, that was already getting into the late 50s or so, you could buy many commercial pieces of equipment. So we stopped building our own, and we bought commercial at that time.
and at the on that topic, where Water Tower Plaza is now, but on North Main Street, the Foster Grant Company, there was a research and development section. There
114 men.
There was a the machine shop for making, you know, so huge research and development.
We had 114 men in that building, the research and development, and we had maybe 30 PhDs. It was all doctors in there, right, Chris?
Right,
they were all doctors.
Exactly.
So we had Mahogany Road, and we had the doctors across the railroad tracks.
In Mahogany Road was the
executive office.
The executive
suite.
office.
Yeah, we had all the vice presidents there, and the secretaries. The vice presidents had their offices, and the secretaries sat outside.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chakas, remember Jacob Chakas? And McManus and a few others.
Ray Hardigan.
Milt Bernstein.
Yeah, Milt Bernstein.
Let's, for the record, so for the LATV audience and for the purposes of the historic record, let's just talk about some of the products that were made, other than the chemicals. We know the chemicals, but what were some of the vast array of products that...
they made waste baskets.
Waste baskets.
They made powder boxes. And they made the Kleenex tissue box. And they were all that crystal.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was beautiful crystal.
We were the first ones
They
with
had
that.
the clearest crystal than anyone in the country. Foster Grant crystal was very clear.
Plastic.
Yeah.
Plastic, right.
Of course, we made combs, millions of combs.
Oh,
we made 140 million pair of sunglasses here, 140 million pair.
The sunglasses.
People throw them away, sit on them, and whatnot. There's Grace over there.
Where? Oh, yeah.
We had, of course, the entire Goody line. There was barrettes, there was combs, there was hair curlers.
They made brooches.
Oh yeah, we made jewelry.
Jewelry.
Pyrolat.
Yeah.
We had a whole
Pyrolat
section,
product.
plastic
They
jewelry.
used to make brooches and
Hair brushes, things like that.
Yeah, brushes, combs,
Yeah,
mirrors.
combs.
mirrors.
What about during the war? The war products. You mentioned something about on a gas mask.
The outlet
Yes.
valve.
And the combs.
The combs, of course. And then they had a match thing, a waterproof match thing with a compass on the top of it. It was about that big, a cylinder. Remember that, Mike?
Yeah,
That cylinder?
yeah.
Every soldier had one of those. For some of these waterproof matches, they were
Right.
in some kind of a wax solution. I mean, those matches were light, but they were wet. It's amazing. Whatever were in there. We did a lot of work for the chemical warfare department.
Yeah.
In those times. Remember that? World War II? And I don't know, we did an awful lot of things. They had special glasses, even when they had the atomic bomb.
They had-
yeah. They had the
They had special glasses for the, I believe for the pilots too.
Yeah,
They had
yeah,
these
yeah.
big glasses.
The visors
Oh, and
for
at
the-
one time too, they made ski glasses.
Yeah, ski glasses for the
skiing.
ski troops. Yeah. Yeah. They were all ground and polished, 6-space lenses, beautiful
Beautiful
lenses.
stuff.
Beautiful.
Was there something for the desert?
When they had the atomic down in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and by the way, my father's first cousin worked down there on that project. Chemical warfare had developed these glasses that go light and dark. You can buy today for your own prescription glasses. They go light and dark. So, the chemical warfare, the United States government developed that process. It was a government patent, so anybody could use it. But they came to us and they asked us to make glasses, so when they fired the atomic bombs, would help the guys not have their retinas burned in their eyes when the thing went off. So we developed a whole series of glasses, sent them down there, but unfortunately that didn't work because when the atomic bomb went off, it was bing, like that, and the reaction time for those glasses was probably a matter of 30 seconds. Too late. The retina was already burnt. So so unfortunately, that's where that development came. I mean, it's a great consumer product for reading glasses,
Right.
but it was not for a safety factor, so it didn't really work at what it was originally intended to work at. Yeah.
On the screen now, they're showing some various pictures of the Foster Grant sunglasses. Tell us something about that. My aunt Teresa worked for years. Teresa Maroney,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
my uncle Gidio,
Yeah, right.
at Foster's. But my aunt mentions how she worked and she used to assemble in the sunglasses. And so many people. She made friendships and acquaintances with people at Foster's. It was like a family atmosphere. Tell us something about that was a big line, the Foster Grant
Family.
Family.
It
And it
was.
felt like family.
It felt like
Everybody
family.
felt it was their business.
We had a great recreation program too.
Sheppy.
Sheppy was in charge of it. Zamir
Shepherd.
He was in charge of it, and he would put on plays. They would go to different places, trips,
Make
go to the
trips.
Boston Pops. He teach people how to do tennis. They had tennis. They had the softball team for girls.
Grace was a star of the softball team.
Oh no, I wasn't.
I've heard about you. You were quite an athlete.
Yeah.
Well, I tried. I wasn't that good, believe me. And he had all these things going, and it was wonderful. I mean, and Joe told him he could do anything he wanted.
Yeah.
Gave him the money, and he just did it.
Everybody sent whole families off with him, and things like the trips to Washington, D.C.
Right, Washington.
He had, right,
All over the
stage
place.
things, and then
A lot of. He loved the
basketball
stage.
stuff. Basketball tickets he had? Baseball tickets?
Baseball, the Red Sox would used to take buses loads
It
to
mentioned
Fenway Park.
in the book that Mr. Shepard, Zamir Shepard, he started, and he was a worker at Foster's, the tool crib.
He took care of the tool crib. Right.
Shippy came to us from Goodman. He was a Goodman guy originally, and when they bought in part of the company, they sent a couple of guys up, Irvin Kalfas, Zamir Shepard, a couple of other guys I forget their now. But Shippy always was a big thing in the theater in New York.
Right.
Yeah.
He was an actor.
Yeah, he was an actor, and he was really quite a guy. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
he ran the metal operation, metal curlers.
That's
when he first came in.
And in the book, it discusses Mr. Shepard's. He thought that it was because at that time when he started, people didn't get out of Leominster a lot.
Right.
That's right.
And he said, well, some people had never been to Boston.
Right.
That's right.
You know, which today you say, well, how can that be? But and so he started in a small scale, different activities, recreational activities, but then he had these major trips eventually to Boston, to baseball games, to theater productions, to all kinds of things that were wonderful for the the camaraderie and that atmosphere of
big family operation.
A family operation.
Absolutely.
And Joe liked to keep his family happy.
That's right.
He got more out of them for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of that.
But everybody was very concerned about the business because they felt it was theirs. People were very concerned of not spoiling anything, not wasting anything. Speaking about not wasting anything, we used to even say that the wrappers from the packages came into the plant. We used to save the papers coming in. And working in a shipping room, you couldn't use just so much gum paper on the wrappers.
Yeah.
Put in the boxes, remember?
Save money, right?
Just whatever it was, a couple of feet long there. If it was any longer than that, somebody would tap you on the shoulder, so you're wasting the paper.
Wasting money.
For efficiency.
You still write on both sides of the memo pads, too.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's true. Don't throw them away.
That's something that we're so, as a society today, we're so throwaway and wasteful. We're working on that.
In fact, speaking about, like Marco Canetta was in charge of the maintenance kind of thing, per se. Yeah. And Joe Foster, the thing he learned from Sam many years ago, on his way to work in the morning, Joe used to zoom in, go right down to where we had the previous day's scrap, and go through the scrap quickly and take a look at it and see if there's any excess things being thrown away, if some operation was running badly. And he'd go right to that himself, go right to that operation and see what the spoilage was at that specific operation, right? And if it was an excess, say 4 or 5%, he'd shut the thing down. I remember that.
When we're talking out in the anteroom, and it mentions it in the book too, Joe, who was very, very generous, Joe, you know, family, and he cared about as his father did. But he liked to know what was going on at all times in the factory. And you said something about he had this on the North Main Street plant, the main building. He was able to see whoever was coming into the plant. Yep. Tell us something about that.
He had his office set up with his desk. You look right out over the parking lot, right down where the gate was, an entrance gate. He could see anybody coming and going. If anybody was leaving early, he'd even know that kind of thing.
And if they came in late, he knew that too.
Exactly. Unreal, unreal, unreal. And in my dad's office was adjacent to his. We had a piece of equipment called a Productrol. And laying on the wall was a whole schematic of all our injection molding machines on the floor, which in later years was in excess of 200. And you could look at right the machine, press a button, and you could see exactly what the cycle was for each specific machine, and whether it was running the way it should have been running. You know, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever the case may have been. When Grace goes back, when she was in the ship, back in the days
I used to figure it out by hand.
All by hand in the molding room. Was Eileen Piano there?
Yeah, she was my boss.
He used to schedule all the machines, and that way, of course, we had a K department. That was the department that prepared the materials to go into the DC, which is the die casting department, right? And Grace and those people were responsible for scheduling that stuff daily into the machines. So that was quite a big operation, boy. And when we first got making our own cellulose acetate, we used to use these bread machines. Same thing they make bread dough out of. You know, many of the guys in this town know that. There used to be a lot of bakeries in this town. But the triethyl, triphenyl, I forget. And with the flakes to make the cellulose acetate materials, and again you can make these all different gradients of hardness and softness, and depending on the application, would feed into the machines. And in fact, in later years, in the beginning of time, the sunglasses, they'd take a raw piece of plastic, they'd dig this thing out before it was injection molded, and put it in the grinder and go like, with a grinder like this, to make the groove inside to insert the lenses. And in later years, a fellow by the name of Conrad LeBlanc developed molding cellulose acetate lenses, frames with a lip. And put them into a machine like this, and they had a lip, and you insert your lenses in there, come down with a machine, heated machine, a plunger like this, would roll the lip over, which eliminated all that hand labor in grinding these things. And that was a tremendous step forward. And that was a thing we never patented, but we had a real leg up on that one too.
And the sunglasses, there's an interesting, nearing the end of the interview here, the sunglasses really became, well, Foster Grant sunglasses were worldwide, and they were the leaders. In fact, they're still, are they still being?
They're imported now, they're all made overseas, and the company that sells them is Bono out of Houston, Texas, and they don't produce anything in the United States anymore. They buy everything and it's resold. Yeah.
But there's an interesting story in the book about Joe, very, very creative. Samuel Foster was very inventive, and Joe also, and he I guess designed the idea of the carousel to display the sunglasses.
Yeah. Oh,
the turn,
the displays.
For the displays,
yes.
and this whole idea of displaying them, that was
point of purchase. People walk in the store and just
very important.
Right.
And then the industry eventually, the sunglasses. Now we take them for granted today, but at one time people didn't wear sunglasses.
That's right.
The idea of the I've lost my age is creeping up on me also.
Yeah, same problem.
But the
senior moment.
Display racks.
Display racks.
The display racks. But there was one point where
we had one situation, Bob, once on some major television program. Was it Jack Paar or somebody? One of those top movies at night. Some guy walked out, and the guest host said, "Who's that behind those Foster Grants?"
That's right.
Who was that? Was that Jack Paar? I forget which one. Arthur Godfrey or somebody. One of the major people, and worked out the guy was wearing a pair of like number 1246 Foster Grants. The next day we had an order for 1 million pair of those.
For those, so the
and then that
television.
became a slogan.
The slogan.
Who's that behind the Foster Grants?
Grants? Yes.
And we had the movie stars like Raquel Welch, and I don't remember any of the others, but she stood out the most.
Oh boy, I can't remember that.
There were a couple.
Cute little blonde there. I can't remember her name. They came to the open house for the new sunglass plant, right?
Oh, that was yeah, I'm sure.
Yike. Anyway,
She took the part of Jean Harlow in a movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that movie, strangely enough, was about the development of the Eastman Kodak Company cellulose acetate, making molding powder out of cotton letters. Strange how that worked out. That was the movie she was in. We can't think of her name. But anyway.
and now the Foster Grant Company, the location, what happened? It was taken over eventually by, it was sold, or because there are some other, so tell us something about that. Marty, what the Hearst Company? American Hearst.
When Joe Foster passed away and things started to change, they sold the company.
Joe Foster passed away in what?
1971. November the 10th.
And before we tell about the Hearst Company, he was very generous to Leominster. He was prominent in Leominster, philanthropic, Leominster Hospital.
People don't even know he used to underwrite the whole recreation thing over here.
Recreation center.
Took care of the whole budget there every year.
So many things.
And the synagogue, he was instrumental in building that.
Such a generous man. But he passed away, and so...
The first people that came in were United Brands. And Goody still owned half of the operation at that time, United Brands. And United Brands owned many other companies like Root Beer Company, and so forth and so on. And they had a major problem. They owned United Fruit. They had a major hurricane down in Panama, I guess. Or was it Panama? Wherever they had growing the bananas. And they had to come up with like $50 million, like overnight. Otherwise, they were going to lose the entire United Fruit Company. And that's when they sold Foster Grant to Hearst. And Hearst had been trying to buy it for a long time, even before United Brands.
Now, Hearst was a
German
company, chemical.
Frankfurt, Germany.
American Herbst.
American Hearst.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were 3 German companies, BASF, Bayer, and Hearst. They used to all be part of the I.J. Farben. And in World War II, when the patent got over there, they broke that company into 3, so it would never again be as big as our company, DuPont. And today, each one of those companies is doing, unbelievably, maybe $80 or $90 billion each. And DuPont probably does just a little bit, if they do 100 million, just about 100 million, I think. And I think they're about 25 million with their exports. So they probably do 125 million at a guess. And those other guys are just about double their size, the 3 of them, even though they're independent companies, supposedly.
Well, Foster Grant has made a tremendous contribution to Leominster, to the citizens. We, at the end of this interview, we want to thank you very much, Grace, Bill, and Marty, for your knowledge and your service to Leominster, and being such fine folks, and your years of service and employment at Foster Grant. And as always, we want to thank Carl Pimarini, Jack Sully, Tina Pimarini, Dennis Cormier, and as always, we want to thank you, the LATV viewing audience, for tuning in to Neighborhood Snapshot. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Marty.